At 2:13 a.m., I watched $32 million vanish from our treasury screen, one silent wire at a time, and by sunrise the CEO fired me in a glass room and called it restructuring. I'm Avery Quinn, 25, operations analyst, queen of ugly spreadsheets and cleaner audit trails. The finance floor at Telaris Capital looks expensive in daylight. At night it feels honest. Aging fluorescents hum. Exit signs buzz like anxious bees. The glass walls stop reflecting smiles and start reflecting numbers. I was there to reconcile month-end. Treasury had a routine sweep queued. Instead, I saw a new vendor, Arc Beacon LLC. Temporary escrow. No history. No W-9 in the vendor folder. No procurement ticket. The wire split into 4 bursts, $11M, $9 million, $6 million, $6 million, out through our Prime banking portal. The approvals looked valid. But the hash on the approval PDF didn't match the print server spool hash I'd seen last week. Cute trick. Wrong audience. I walked to the print server corner by the dead ficus and pulled the side panel. Warm dust. 2 stubborn screws. I dumped tonight's spools to a USB I kept taped inside a binder labeled Toner Returns 2022. I printed the audit log to the hungry 18F printer. It chirped like a guilt-ridden bird. Server room next. Cold air. Cable nests. The badge reader blinked green for me because no one ever bothered to pull pilot access from my keycard after last year's Agile experiment. I exported syslog snippets and checkpoint the CM alerts. Nothing dramatic, just a tiny pattern. After-hours approvals framed as facility walkthrough calendar invites. Break room. Burnt coffee metallic. I grimaced, poured it out. The vending machine whined. My hands shook, not with fear, with math. If the money left before 3 a.m., the bank would process at 8. By 9, the paper would look blessed. By noon, the story would harden like concrete. Sunrise bled into glass. I dropped the USB in my tote between a crushed granola bar and my apartment keys. I'd barely settled when HR pinged my teams. 8:30 in Glass C. With Leonard and Riley. Leonard Vale, CEO, white smile, gray suit. Riley Penn, VP Finance, precise part, expensive tie. HR's Natalie slid a folder across the glass. Restructuring, she said softly. Your role is impacted. Severance contingent on NDA. She'd practiced in the mirror. I scanned the NDA. It wanted my silence for a number that would fit in a decent sedan. Leonard did sympathy face. Riley watched my eyes for a flinch. I gave them nothing except a small smile and a question. Can I get my things? Security will assist, Riley said. His voice clipped the way voices clip when they're rushing past a bomb they think they've defused. Security took my badge. Not the pilot card. They didn't know it existed. Elevator down. Lobby hugeness. Curated silence. I adjusted my tote, felt the USB bite my palm from inside the lining, and kept walking. They thought I'd disappear into LinkedIn posts and pity coffees. They didn't know the building better than I did. They didn't know I had the map. 5 minutes. 10. Maya called from the alley by the freight doors, whispering like the air itself had ears. I found it, she said. Arc Beacon's profile was added by Riley. But listen, the W-9 he uploaded? It's a scan. Crooked, like he pulled it off a copier at 2 a.m. There's no backup in DocuSign. No approval trail. Nothing. I scribbled on my legal pad. My handwriting shook from the caffeine and the weight of 32 million gone. Send it to me. Not company mail. Use Proton. I shouldn't. You already looked. That makes you complicit if it blows. Better to choose which side you're on. Silence. Then, check your inbox in 5. She hung up. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling of my tiny apartment. My upstairs neighbor was vacuuming. Every buzz of that motor was a reminder. If I didn't move fast, this whole mess would get vacuumed clean. By noon, I was back at the Telaris Tower. Not officially. My pilot badge wasn't tied to payroll, so deactivation scripts missed it. I rode the freight elevator up to 18, where the old AP servers were stacked in a storage cage behind yellow caution tape. Dust. Dead monitors. Ethernet cables curled like snakes. I knew the cage padlock code. I'd memorized it the day facilities left it scribbled on a post-it. Inside, one tower still whirred faintly. Someone had plugged it back in. I logged on. No domain controller, no MFA, just local cache. And there it was, vendor entry for Arc Beacon, created at 2:12 a.m. Same minute the first wire left. User ID or PEN. IP address, Telaris Corporate, not VPN. Riley had been in the building. I copied everything to a fresh USB and slipped it into the lining of my blazer. On my way out, I passed the loading dock. Security guards were joking about the CEO's secret visitor who'd come through last night. They said he skipped the main lobby. Entered through freight. No name logged, just a temporary badge printed by Riley. I kept walking. My heart raced. A stranger in the building at the exact hour 32 million vanished. That was when I knew this wasn't sloppy fraud. It was an inside job with a partner no one was supposed to see. And they thought firing me erased the only witness. They were wrong. The knife wasn't steel. It was 12 pages on Telaris letterhead. Glass C was all windows and theater. The whiteboard squeaked under a ghost chart someone forgot to erase. Leonard Vail sat at the head like he owned sunlight. Riley Penn lined up his pen parallel to the table's edge. HR's Natalie smiled the way people smile at a dog they plan to take to the vet. Restructuring, Leonard said, like a blessing. Market headwinds. Nothing personal. He'd rehearsed it. I had too. Natalie slid the packet to me. Severance, 4 weeks. NDA attached. You'll get outplacement support. I flipped pages. Non-disparagement. Non-rehire. Broad confidentiality that tried to swallow any information, whether public or not. A cooperation clause that made me a free consultant. And a line that mattered. Termination. Position eliminated. Not for cause. I tapped it. You're choosing this? Natalie nodded. Riley didn't. For my records, I said, please initial this page as accurate. I pushed a pen to Natalie. She glanced at Leonard. He did a slow blink that meant yes. She initialed. Laptop? Riley said. In IT imaging, I lied. I'll return what I have. I unhooked my employee badge and set it down. Not the other one. The pilot badge sat coiled inside my notebook spiral, laminated plastic against cardboard, invisible unless you knew. Leonard laced his fingers. Avery, you're talented. This is the economy. Take the check, take a breath. I looked through the glass at the floor. I knew better than he ever would. I'll need a signed copy of the agreement to review. And a clean reference letter. Company policy 4.2 says it's available upon request. Please add it. Natalie blinked. She didn't argue policy with me. We can do that. I wrote 2 sentences by hand at the bottom of the NDA. This agreement does not prevent legally protected disclosures to regulators, auditors, or law enforcement. Nothing herein prohibits whistleblowing. I slid it back. Initial that car out and I'll consider. Leonard's jaw moved. Riley's pen finally stopped lining up with the table. Natalie whispered, that language is standard in some states. She wrote it in, initialed. Leonard scrawled his LV. Riley didn't touch it. Personal items? I asked. Security will escort you, Riley said, pretending it was kindness. We'll ship anything else. He stood. So did Leonard. Meeting over. I reached for the packet. Actually, Riley said, palm out, legal needs that. I need a copy to review. I lifted my phone. Or I can take photos. Leonard forced a chuckle. Of course. He nodded at Natalie. She took the packet, walked it to the copier outside the room, and returned with 2 sets. One for them. One for me. On page 9, the copier left a black line, toner hiccup. That was good. If someone swapped pages later, the artifact would expose it. Security arrived with a cardboard box and polite small talk. Tom, broad shoulders, soft eyes. He'd helped me carry monitors once. Sorry, Avery, he muttered. Orders. We walked past the break room. Burnt coffee again. Past the print server corner, where the panel I'd opened at 3 a.m. now sat perfectly flush. Someone had checked. Someone had missed the tape where my USB had been. At my desk, I packed the obvious. Mug, hoodie, a cactus that hated me. I slipped a thin envelope under the monitor stand, my checklist from year-end controls testing, signed by Riley. The signature date was a Friday he'd posted from an airport bar on Instagram. Time zones matter. Audit committees care. Riley hovered in the aisle like a shadow that paid rent. No hard feelings, he said. I smiled. You dropped a decimal on the Q2 variance, remember? I helped you fix it before the board deck. He bristled. We all help each other here. Do we? He leaned closer. I'd think carefully about how you spend your time this week. Me too, I said. Tom took the box. We rode the elevator down. The lobby was museum quiet. A fountain burbled like it had stock options. At the revolving doors, Natalie caught up, slightly out of breath, holding a small blue folder. Your Cobra notice, reference letter draft, and a prepaid courier label for any equipment you find at home. Her eyes were kind. Avery, just move on. This place eats people. Outside, the building's mirrored skin threw my face back at me, pale in morning light. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One photo. The freight corridor at 2:06 a.m. A man in a cap walking beside Riley. The timestamp matched the first vendor entry. No text. Just the photo. I looked up at the tower. Somewhere, someone thought they had leverage. They'd just sent me proof. By 9:07 a.m., my apartment was an incident room. Kitchen table. Cheap lamp. For stacks labeled like crime scenes, wires, vendor, physical, cover. I pinned the freight corridor photo to a folder and wrote one word, partner. Tasks, not speeches. Arc beacon first. I ran the EIN from the crooked W9 on my personal laptop. No match in Treasury. That's a B-notice trigger, backup withholding at 24% on future payments, and an IRS letter nobody ignores. I drafted the AP alert in plain language. I didn't send it. Ammunition belongs in a magazine, not the chamber. Approvals next. 2 PDFs wore the same signature, but the print server hashes didn't match the Treasury archive. Export, edit, re-import. I printed both hashes and stapled them to the vendor creation log, 2:12 a.m. User A peer pen, same minute the first wire left. Numbers don't gossip, they testify. Calendar metadata, recurring after-hours blocks titled Facility Walkthrough, Location, Freight, No Invitees. I opened our lease addendum and found my lever, Clause 7. 4. Property manager must keep freight and elevator logs for 18 months and provide them upon written request for security or loss events. They wrote it for slip and fall. I would use it for theft. I drafted a letter to the property manager, Carmen Duarte, preserve and provide loading dock sign-ins, temporary badge prints, and freight car logs from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. Dates attached. Calm tone. Exact sites. Return address I control. Auditors next. They wear neutrality like a robe until you say the sacrament. Management override of controls. I wrote a memo with that phrase in the header and attached exhibits. The 2:12 a.m. Vendor entry, hash mismatches, the 4-burst wire pattern, the anonymous photo. I didn't accuse. I requested a scope expansion of vendor onboarding and disbursements. Auditors love scope. Boards listen when scope gets expensive. My laser printer wheezed but obeyed. I clipped packets, slid everything into a banker's box, relabeled toner returns 2022. Camouflage. Facilities treats toner like weather, no one questions it. Phone buzz. Unknown number, careful who you BCC. No punctuation. I photographed the text with a cracked Android I keep for Craigslist, pulled its SIM, shut both in a tin. New rule on a post-it, air gap anything that matters. Money check. I had an unsigned severance, 3 months rent, and a credit card about to stage an intervention. Revenge needs runway. I built a timeline, bank cutoff windows, log rotation schedules, SOC2 retention, the DNO policies claim notice clock. Trigger the right systems in the right order, and the machinery drags truth into daylight. I mailed a packet to myself by certified mail, chain of custody I owned, not Outlook. I drafted a 1-page note to the bank's KYC officer flagging the vendor's EIN mismatch and PO box. No accusations. Just inconsistent onboarding artifacts observed. Banks hate inconsistency more than crime. Last, questions for a lawyer I hadn't hired yet. Can we compel third-party cloud logs without filing suit? Emergency preservation motion timing? How to box in the DNO carrier if they try insured versus insured? Which whistleblower statute covers a former employee carrying metadata, not trade secrets? At 3:02 p.m., the nail salon downstairs fell silent. I sealed 4 envelopes, auditors, Carmen, my certified copy, the future attorney, stacked them in the toner box, pulled on a hoodie, and tucked my pilot badge behind a coffee punch card. Peephole check. Hallway clear. If they wanted me quiet, they shouldn't have written Clause 7. 4. If they wanted silence, they should have bought better locks. By 4:10 p.m., the envelopes were moving. Property manager first. Mezzanine office, dust, and lemon. Carmen Duarte kept a lease binder like a weapon. I placed my letter on her blotter, Clause 7. For highlighted. Preserve freight logs, loading dock sign-ins, temporary badge prints, and corridor stills, 6 p.m. - 3 a.m. last night. She read twice. You're not staff. Former tenant rep, the clause covers security or loss events. This is one. I slid a prepaid envelope across. Stamped the copy. Chain of custody starts now. She stamped. Will hold 10 business days, pending counsel. No footage leaves without clearance. 10 days is enough, I said, and left with the receipt. Strip mall mailbox next. I sent the audit packet certified to the engagement partner and to the firm's risk inbox. Cover page read, Potential Management Override of Controls. Request for Scope Expansion. I emailed a PDF from a clean burner address, BCC, only the certified mail tracking number. Paper first, electrons second. On the sidewalk, I filed the D&O carrier's nightmare, a notice of circumstances. Policy number, dates, facts, exhibits. No adjectives. I asked for acknowledgement and an SIU contact. Then a preservation letter to the Payment Processors Council, hold all logs and approval artifacts for ArcBeacon's vendor ID, 18 to 3 o'clock, specified dates. Anticipated litigation hold. Narrow. Surgical. Maya texted. Riley asked who saw the vendor file. He closed my laptop. You okay? For now. Leave at 5. Front door. Don't carry anything out. Thumbs up. I didn't trust it. At 6:32 p.m., I watched the freight doors from my car in the parking structure. A courier rolled in a sealed gray bin, the kind IT uses for e-waste. 10 minutes later, Riley arrived with security Tom and signed a tablet. The bin rolled out with yellow tape. I circled the block and caught the truck at a light. Logo, Data Cycle Asset Recovery. They pick up on Thursdays. Today was Wednesday. I wrote the plate and timestamp, then texted a note to my empty attorney contact, Emergency Preservation Re, Data Cycle Pickup, Telaris 18F, 1842. I called Carmen. Add chain of custody docs for an IT bin that just left your doc to the preservation scope. A beat. Already logging it, she said. Good. Back home, I opened HR's Blue folder. The reference letter was bland, signed, and perfect for later. I scanned it under a boring file name only I would recognize. My burner pinged, D&O acknowledgement with a claim number and the line that matters assigned, Special Investigations Unit. Right kind of attention. Another ping. Unknown number. Stop before you embarrass yourself. No signature. I forwarded it to the claims inbox with potential witness intimidation in the subject, then killed the SIM. Checklist, fat marker. Audit firm, certified receipt in flight. D&O, claim number issued, SIU assigned. Property manager. Preservation clock started. Payment processor, hold letter sent. Data cycle, plate/time noted, add to scope. AP, backup withholding draft, hold for timing. Counsel, retain by 9 a.m. tomorrow. I set 2 alarms for the log rotation windows, midnight and 2 a.m. 32 million moved in silence last night. Tonight, the building itself would start talking. By 8:57 a.m. I was in a lawyer's conference room that smelled like carpet glue and confidence. Elijah Grant shook my hand once, then let the exhibits talk. I slid packets across the table, vendor entry at 2:12 a.m., hash mismatches, the photo, Carmen's stamped preservation receipt. He skimmed, pen silent. We file an emergency preservation notice to the cloud host and payment processor. Separate letters to Telaris's audit committee chair. You don't accuse, you pin clocks. He typed while I talked. Subject lines that sting without screaming. My phone buzzed. Email from Carmen. Preliminary extracts attached, full counsel review pending. A PDF of freight events. Time columns. Door open/close. One line blinked at me. Temp badge VAS 4731. Printed 151 by pen. Used 204 at freight, dock A. 206 at corridor 18N. Then the loading dock manifest with yesterday's data cycle bin. Chain of custody number scrawled in Sharpie. Timestamp 1842. Exactly what I'd seen. Elijah nodded. Good. We can attach this to the committee letter. He dictated names. Audit chair is Marjorie Klein. Independent. Old school. He CC'd the D&O claim address, forcing the insurer into the room. We left with a plan and an invoice I would survive. Back at Telaris, the pilot badge still smiled for me. I rode the freight alone. The bulb hummed like it had a secret. On 18, I slid into the storage cage. The retired AP tower blinked a patient green. I pulled logs, print queues, local temp folders, the cached draft _approvals_V2. PDF that shouldn't exist. Its metadata was louder than the text, created 2 weeks ago, edited 3 times between 1:54 and 2:10 last night. Author, R. Penn. The file name history listed _backdate before it was cleaned. People love versioning. They forget it tattles. The 18F printer had a tiny SSD. I opened the job history. Someone had queued 3 forms at 2:08, then canceled. The thumbnail showed signature blocks with my CFO's name, except our CFO quit last quarter. Wrong signature template. Sloppy. I shot photos, dumped spools to a fresh USB, and sealed it in a coin envelope I'd numbered in Sharpie. Chain of custody matters when people start pretending you imagine things. On my way out, the freight doors parted. Security Tom stepped in, surprised, then resigned. Pilot cleanup, he asked. Old toner, I said, lifting the decoy box. He didn't push. Tom is the kind of good man companies use like floor mats. At 1:12 p.m., Elijah forwarded his letter to the audit chair. Clean. Surgical. Exhibits numbered. He requested an immediate executive session without management present and a freeze on all payments to Arc Beacon, pending independent verification. He CC'd the insurer and the audit firm. Everyone who could lose money saw it. Maya pinged from a borrowed phone. Riley called an all-hands in finance 4:03 p.m. No agenda. Don't ask questions in the room, I wrote. Sit near the door. Photograph the whiteboard when people stand. She sent back a single dot. It's said enough. Carmen called next. Legal says I can release still images labeled life safety without prior tenant council approval. Motion-sensitive frames only. Blurry faces. Not video. Stills work. Check your inbox in an hour. The finance all-hands leaked through glass walls before it began. I watched from the cafe across the lobby. Riley wrote cleanup protocol on the board. He smiled too much. He announced a routine vendor reconciliation and a temporary suspension of after-hours building access. Someone asked about Arc Beacon. He shrugged. Part of a broader review. Elijah read my photo of the whiteboard and whistled. They're reacting. Good. Reaction creates record. At 4:03 p.m., Carmen's stills landed. Freight corridor. Riley's profile. Beside him, a man in a cap, head down, carrying a slim briefcase. The timestamp 2:06 matched the door ping. The face was fuzzy. The posture wasn't. Broad shoulders, right knee turned in. I sent the still to Elijah. He replied with 4 words, "We're ready for names." The walls were talking. And somewhere behind those walls, someone was running out of places to hide. At 9:36 a.m., I faced 3 people who could flip the table. Elijah led. On video, audit chair Marjorie Klein. In person, Nora Chen from the insurer's SIU. A junior associate took notes without blinking. Timeline, I said. 151 temp badge VIS 4731 printed by pen. 2:04 freight door. 2:06 corridor 18N. 2:12 vendor Arc Beacon created by Apier pen. 2:13 first wire. 1842 data cycle picks up an e-waste bin. Chain of custody noted. Nora flipped to the exhibits. Hashes? I pointed. 2 approval PDFs, same names. Different print server hashes. Export, edit, re-import. Printer history shows 3 canceled jobs at 2:08 using our ex-CFO's template. Marjorie's voice was flat. Benign explanation? Not with the temp badge and freight access, I said. Riley walked with an unlogged visitor. Elijah kept it clean. We request 2 actions. 1. Immediate freeze on payments to Arc Beacon and related vendors. 2. Litigation hold on devices, logs, and approvals. Image the AP tower on 18F before any rotation. Nora nodded. Carrier supports both. Preserves coverage options and reduces loss. Marjorie looked off screen, then back. Draft resolutions by noon. Done, Elijah said. He had them printed already. He CC'd the DNO claim address to force the insurer into the chain. We broke. No speeches. At 11:12, the draft resolutions went out: payment freeze, device preservation, independent review, report to the full board. Numbers, dates, signatures. No adjectives. I texted Maya. If cleanup gets mentioned, say legal and stop. Copy, she wrote. Riley's pacing. 1:03 p.m. executive session. Management excluded. I waited in the hall with a paper cup. At 1:31, Elijah stepped out with the sign set. My copy carried the copier's black streak. Good. Artifacts expose swaps. Next, he said. Bank notification and hold notices to IT and facilities. Nora added, interviews start today. Separate tracks. Talk to security Tom, I said. He saw the pickup with Riley. Elijah gave me a look. Not your witness list. Then call it a lead. By 2:10, the bank replied, vendor flagged. Callback on all outgoing wires. New payments paused. That changed the game. A bank pause is louder than any memo. At 2:27, IT tried to push standard rotation. Elijah answered, rotation suspended by order of the audit committee. He CC'd Marjorie. Thread died immediately. At 3:02, finance held an all hands. I watched from the lobby cafe through glass walls. Riley wrote cleanup protocol in block caps. Leonard joined to project calm. They announced routine vendor reconciliation and temporary suspension of after-hours access. Someone asked about Arc Beacon. Riley said, part of a broader review. No one looked comfortable. I sent Elijah a photo of the whiteboard. He texted back, they're reacting. Reaction equals record. At 3:19, we met management in a smaller boardroom to acknowledge the freeze. Leonard signed first. His hand steadied until the word freeze. Riley tried a joke. Proactive housekeeping. Excellent, Elijah said. We'll start imaging the AP tower and collecting the cancelled print jobs. Riley said, those queues purge nightly. Rotation is suspended, Elijah replied. See the resolution. Silence held. Outside, a copier banged out more sets of the minutes than anyone asked for. Paper multiplies when people get nervous. We left with signatures, a bank pause, and a legal hold. By 4 p.m. Arc Beacon was frozen. Devices were boxed. Logs were locked. The risk sat with the board, not with me. The trap didn't need drama. It had a clock. And it had their names on it. 8:14 p.m. The lobby was empty. My pilot badge still lit green. Freight elevator up. No small talk. 18th floor. Service corridor. A scuffed door labeled IT asset recovery. Same keypad code facilities once taped to the frame. I keyed in and slipped inside. Metal racks. Gray bins. 2 retired, AP laptops tagged wipe pending. I picked the one with dust on enter, control, and 2 shortcut habits. Power on. I killed Wi-Fi. Local admin worked. No one had cleared it. User profile, repen. Local cache held more than it should, Outlook OSD, downloads, temp, a folder called approvals. Inside, draft_approvals_final2. PDF. Properties showed created 2 weeks ago, then edits at 21:17 the night of the wires. Editor, R, pen via OneDrive sync. Travel desk folder sat nearby. Boarding pass _R pen _SF 1092. Departure 2040. Airline app screenshot showed in air at 21:17. Same minute his account, edited on boarding. That edit didn't happen on a plane. AnyConnect logs showed a VPN session at 21:12 from an internal subnet. Not airline Wi-Fi. Someone used his credentials from inside the building while he flew. Credential sharing, token left open, or a second user. Any option breaks a story. Batch printer utility cache lived on this box from an old pilot. A small CSV, temp badge VAS 4731 issued 151 by pen, note, vendor review, no visitor name. I printed to PDF and signed the printout with time and location. Chain of custody starts on paper. Printer queue thumbnail showed 3 canceled jobs at 2:08. Wrong signature template, the ex-CFO who quit last quarter. I exported the thumbnails and the queue XML. 3 canceled jobs are not a glitch. Footsteps passed in the hall. A cart squeaked. Janitorial. I waited, then kept pulling. OneDrive sync errors listed 1 stuck file. Approvals /vendor _arcbeacon _w9 JPG. Source, copier feed. Metadata cropped and skewed at 2:09. The W9 was scanned the same night as the wires, not weeks earlier. I imaged the drive slices I needed, wrote them to a clean USB, sealed it in a numbered coin envelope, and logged the seal number in my notebook. I wiped prints from the lid and set the laptop back where it sat. Freight down. Out. Back at my kitchen table, I lined up the sequence. 151 temp badge printed by Riley. 204 freight door. 206 corridor 18N. 209 W9 scanned. 212 vendor created. 213 wire. 2112 VPN from inside. 2117 edits while Riley was in air. 1842 next day. Data cycle pickup with chain of custody. I sent Elijah a tight email. Flight conflict versus edit time. Internal VPN session. Badge CSV. W9 metadata. Printer queue artifacts. Request. Demand the bank claw back disbursed funds starting with the first $11 million and order independent forensic imaging of every device Riley touched. He replied fast, moving now. Bank demand plus device imaging. A new unknown text hit my burner. Cute break-in trick. Next time knock. I didn't answer. I forwarded it to SU's Nora and BCC'd Carmen with a single line. Please preserve janitorial badge swipes for 18F, 1:30 to 3 o'clock. I closed the toner box and set it by the door. The room was quiet. The clock wasn't. 9:02 a.m. The cloud host answered first. Preservation request denied. 3 flat paragraphs. I'm not the tenant. No subpoena. No court order. Retention for the log class, 72 hours. Absent legal process, rotation proceeds at 23:59. The clock started. I forwarded it to Elijah. He called at once. Emergency motion today. Judge. Calendar's tight. Stay put. Carmen's desk had a new sign, counsel review required. She stepped out anyway. I stamped your preservation, she said, but building counsel now wants tenant authorization from an active officer. Your copy isn't enough. We'll hold 10 business days. No more stills until counsel clears it. You did the right thing, I said, and left with my stamped receipt. HR hit next, cease and desist. They cited my NDA, improper access, contacting employees, and threatened to void severance and claw back any monies advanced. CC, outside counsel and security. I sent it to Elijah. Use our whistleblower carve-out. On it. Don't reply. The audit firm blinked. To maintain independence, we will defer review of materials provided outside formal management channels until the audit committee engages independent counsel. Translation. Pause. They wouldn't touch my packet yet. Expected, Elijah said. Annoying. Not fatal. The bank called. Freeze in place for future wires. But the first $11 million settled final on Fedwire. Irrevocable. I asked for callback verification on anything tied to ArcBeacon or affiliates and a named KYC officer. I got both. Small leverage. Real timestamp. At noon, my pilot badge flashed red. Tom came over, voice low. Non-standard credentials revoked. Also, management pulled lobby footage of you with that toner box. I understand. Be careful, he said, eyes on the floor. Maya went dark. At 1:40 p.m. A new number texted, I'm okay. HR coaching. They boxed my desk. Don't contact me. Full stop at the end. I forwarded it to Elijah. He drafted a letter to the audit chair forbidding retaliation against potential witnesses and sent it within the hour. Elijah filed the emergency motion at 2:18 p.m. The clerk stamped it and added, hearing at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Tomorrow is after 23:59. Can Chambers email a temporary order? I asked. I'll try, he said. We also asked the host for a voluntary 24-hour hold. Counsel replied, we will not alter retention absent court order. At 4:06, Carmen forwarded a building memo from Leonard, effective immediately, after-hours access suspended, vendor engagements route through finance, no devices leave premises without written approval. Policy as barricade. I circled the block. Glass looked normal. Inside, shoulders were tight. Back home, I stripped the plan to essentials, preserve what I still controlled, document every denial, push the insurer and the audit chair to own the risk now. I sent Marjorie a 1-page rotation risk with precise times. If logs rotate at 23:59, independent verification is materially harder. Nora at SIU was CC'd. Marjorie replied in 9 minutes. Understood. Instructing Telaris to consent to temporary preservation. 5 minutes later, Leonard replied all. We decline. Counsel. I stared at the clock. 23:59. Plan A was boxed in. Cloud refusal. Building counsel. NDA threats. Audit pause. $11 million gone. Access revoked. Maya muzzled. Tonight needed a plan B. 8:41 p.m. Plan B cracked before it left my table. The payment processors counsel replied first. We will honor a preservation order only upon receipt from Telaris or a court. Attached was a letter on Telaris letterhead, signed by Leonard, stating the company does not consent to external inquiries at this time. They closed the ticket. 2 minutes later, the bank's KYC officer called. We verified ArcBeacon at onboarding, he said. Articles filed. EIN valid under apparent filing. I pulled up my notes. The EIN on their packet wasn't the one on Riley's W-9. Cross-check the scanned W-9, I said. He paused. We don't have that image. Your company submitted a certification form instead. Neat. They dodged the image, kept the checkbox. 9:06 p.m. IT sent a reply all I wasn't meant to see, Elijah forwarded it. Imaging complete on AP tower. Drive failed during copy. SSD not recoverable. Convenient timing. They cited a power event from the afternoon fire loop test. I checked my watch. Facilities had run the loop at 3 o'clock. The failure hit at 3:21, right after the freeze. Carmen texted, counsel pulled stills from release queue. Life safety exception now narrowly construed. No more images until tomorrow. Her 10-day hold stood, but the pictures were trapped. 9:18 p.m. SIU's Nora pinged, carrier reviewing coverage reservation. Insured versus insured exclusion may apply if the board treats this as internal dispute. Translation: they might try to deny. The same insurer I'd leveraged was eyeing the exit. I opened my AP draft, the backup withholding notice. I needed an officer signature. Our acting controller was Riley's friend. Sending it now would telegraph my last bullet and get ignored. I closed the file. My phone rang. Unknown. I let it hit voicemail. A man's voice. Ms. Quinn, this is Ken Blair, counsel for Archbeacon. Your recent communications contained defamatory statements. Preserve your devices. They were flipping the script fast. 9:41 p.m. Data Cycle responded to Carmen's chain of custody request. Customer is Telaris. We provide certificates of destruction only. No device-level manifests released without customer approval. Telaris approval meant Riley's approval. 10:02 p.m. Maya finally sent 3 words. They took everything. Then nothing. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. 10:19 p.m. The cloud host automated another email. Reminder, rotation at 23:59 for log class X17. No mercy in the timestamp. Elijah called Chambers again. No answer. I tried the building anyway. The pilot badge flashed red and stayed red. Tom shook his head through the glass, helpless. The freight camera panned as if it had a conscience. I turned back to the street. 10:47 p.m. I rechecked my assets. USBs sealed and numbered. Photos. The flight conflict. Badge CSV. W9 metadata. Printer Q thumbnails. Enough to prove pattern. Not enough to reconstruct everything if X17 vanished. Elijah texted, if the court won't move, we need a state law lever outside federal discovery. Something that forces the building and vendors to hold data regardless of Telaris. I knew one, but it was a reach. State whistleblower statute with an immediate preservation provision tied to potential public funds exposure via insurer. It needed a notarized filing and a specific kind of notice. It also needed me to put my name on it, permanently. 10:58 p.m. I printed the form. The laser coughed and pushed it out. I filled every blank. I stapled my exhibits list. I checked the clock. 23:59 was close enough to hear. I shut down every screen and packed the toner box again. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock, I'd stand in a clerk's office with a notary stamp and a statute that didn't care about Telaris's mood. Tonight, all I could do was watch the minutes die and keep the pieces that still breathed. 7:58 a.m. County Clerk's Counter. I filed a sworn whistleblower notice under the state statute for former employees reporting financial misconduct tied to insured losses. Notary stamp at 8:03. I e-filed the exhibits at the kiosk. The docket showed the line I needed. Immediate preservation requested. 8:17. I served the notice on the cloud host, the payment processor, the bank, the audit chair, and the insurer's SIU. Subject: statutory preservation demanded, potential insurer exposure. Attachments: flight conflict, badge CSV, W9 metadata, Q thumbnails, Carmen's stamped hold. 8:41. Chambers emailed Elijah, temporary order granted pending 10 o'clock hearing. 14 days of preservation for the named accounts and logs. The 23:59 rotation lost its teeth. 9:02. Carmen called. Our insurer approved life safety releases. I can send motion trigger stills for the freight corridor and 18N elevators. Faces blurred. No video. Send frames and camera IDs, I said. I'll map them to door pings. 9:15. Essays Nora wrote, reservation of rights remains, but the carrier supports the order and requests independent imaging of AP devices. Hedge, but on my side. 9:28. The bank responded to my KYC nudge. Beneficial owner update required for Archbeacon. Callback continues. I flagged their missing W9 image. Your onboarding accepted a certification without the document. See Exhibit D. Banks hate gaps. 9:46. Carmen Stills landed. 2:05 to 2:07. Riley in profile. Next to him, a cap, a slim briefcase. The visitor's lanyard flipped backward. The printer on it read VIS 4731. My CSV already had that number. A latch close-up showed Brack. I'd seen the name on ArcBeacon's signatory, Lionel Brack. I sent Elijah a two-liner, VIS 4731 confirmed. Brack on briefcase. Likely tied to signatory. Logged, he replied. We verify before we name. 10 o'clock, hearing by audio. The host's lawyer resisted scope. Elijah read the statute and the insurer angle. The judge cut in. Preservation harms no one. Order extended. Device logs, badge printer logs, copier feed artifacts. The processor stopped arguing. 10:37. HR's outside counsel backed off. We acknowledge your statutory filing. Company will not interfere with lawful requests. The severance threat died. 11:12. Building risk management authorized elevator service logs as life safety due to late-night freight use. The log showed car assignments, door times, weight deltas. At 2:06, doors opened at 18N, an 8-second pause. Weight dropped by 9 kilos. Briefcase out, not people. A handoff. 11:40. I compiled a one-page status for Marjorie, CC Nora, obstacles addressed. Bullets only, temp order in force, stills and service logs received, KYC escalation live, HR backed down, insurer supports imaging. Final bullet, name clues surfaced, Brack. 12:05, Marjorie replied, special meeting at 1600 hours. Management excluded. Elijah texted, we go in clean, freeze affirmed, imaging ordered, bank clawback demand, identify Brack. Last night I was blocked by access, rotation, and silence. By noon I had a court order, fresh images, and a boardroom without Leonard. The clock had flipped. 1600 hours, special meeting. Management excluded. Marjorie Klein ran it like a drill. Nora from SIU and Elijah sat with binders. Directors stared like auditors. Elijah opened simple. Preservation order in force. Stills match temp badge VIS 4731 issued by Penn. Elevator service log shows a briefcase handoff at 2:06. AP edits posted while Riley was in air. We request freeze on ArcBeacon, independent imaging, and immediate clawback. Marjorie, identity. I slid one page. The bank's KYC check pushed an update. ArcBeacon signatory, Lionel Brack. Custodian records list Brack Asset Services with the same P.O. box as the Vale Family Trust. Charity program shows honorary chair, Leonard Vale and Allison Brack Vale. Silence did the rest. Nora kept it dry. Undisclosed related party risk. The carrier supports freeze, imaging, and referral to independent counsel. Coverage reserved pending cooperation. A director cleared his throat. Vote. They passed 4 measures fast. Freeze all ArcBeacon and affiliate payments. Issue clawback demands. Order independent forensic imaging of AP systems, badge printers, and copier feeds. Suspend Riley. Place Leonard on leave pending review. Retain special counsel. Coordinate with the insurer. Signatures landed. No speeches. 1637. The bank called into the room. We've frozen $21 million inbound at the custodian. First $11 million settled yesterday and was swept to Brack Asset Services. The conflict was now on tape. 1706. Carmen sent fresh life safety stills. One frame showed the briefcase between Riley and the visitor, lanyard flipped, VIS 4731 readable. Good enough. 1718. HR's outside counsel stepped in late. Marjorie didn't offer a chair. The company retracts its cease and desist, the lawyer said. MS. Quinn's cooperation is invited. Document it, Marjorie said. Then leave. 1732. The custodian froze Brack Asset Services pending verification. Nora nodded once. 1804. Terms. Elijah slid a one-pager. Cooperation agreement. Fees paid. No retaliation. Regulatory carve-outs. Optional reinstatement. Settlement tied to recovered amounts. I signed. So did Marjorie. Done. Aftermath moved fast. Riley suspended. Leonard stepped back. The insurer dropped its reservation and opened recovery. The bank pushed back $21 million. Special counsel moved to seize the rest under the custodian freeze. Lionel Brack appeared with counsel and found out elevators remember. I didn't return to my desk. I returned my pilot badge to Carmen. She locked it away without a word. We understood the same thing. The building keeps score. My takeaway is simple. Power isn't the loud meeting or the big title. It's the small systems you line up: clauses, logs, badge pings, print cues pulled in the right order, on time. That's all leverage is. Tell me something. If your boss shut the lights off on you tomorrow, which lever would you pull first, and do you know where it lives? Every story lives as long as it is remembered. A like is your mark on the story, and a subscription is your ticket to the next on.